Behar gets schooled after screeching about Judge Kavanaugh nomination by Carmen Sabia Politics US News from MadWorldNews.com. It doesn't matter who President Trump picked to fill the vacancy at the Supreme Court after the announced retirement of Justice Anthony Kennedy. Liberals were going to say it was the apocalypse. Joy Behar of ABC's The View was among the most unhinged on Tuesday. Behar said she believed that the president should not be able to nominate a Supreme Court justice during the time he is under investigation for obstruction of justice and colluding with Russia during the 2016 presidential election, both of which no evidence has been produced for, and the fact is that the Democrats could keep this president under investigation for an entire 8-year presidency. Yeah, at the rate they're going, it's unbelievable. I'm not going to read what they're going to say, so let's just take a listen to this.
So, a lot of Democrats are not celebrating, who's picked for the Supreme Court Justice.
You're unhinged,
Kavanaugh. Some saying he's coming for Roe v. Wade. Senators like Chuck Schumer say, we're going to block him. What do you think of the pick?
Go ahead.
Oh, listen, he's young. He's from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. I've appeared in front of the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. It has some of the finest judges in our country. It's typically a lot of the Supreme Court justices are fielded from that circuit. He worked for President Bush. He is well qualified. He went to Yale Law School, Yale undergrad. A lot of people are saying he's so conservative. I think he's a moderate conservative. I think he clerked for Justice Kennedy. I think he's more in the vein of a Neil Gorsuch.
Is Neil Gorsuch a moderate conservative? I don't think so.
I actually think he is. I
Really?
think he's somewhat more of a moderate conservative. I mean, if you look at some of the decisions that that Kavanaugh wrote on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, some of his brethren were even more far right, and so I think
Cautiously
Megan agreed with me.
Well,
I think it's
Do you think he'll overturn Roe v. Wade?
No, and I think the politics of this are really interesting. First, I would like to say that I agree with Sunny that I'm fascinated that he chose the swampiest swamp creature from the Bush administration, because I thought just out of loyalty alone, he probably wouldn't want anyone that had worked for Bush, and I have friends that worked alongside him. The politics of this, watch for the moderate Republicans, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and red state Democrats like Heidi Heitkamp, Joe Donnelly, and Joe Manchin, because these are the people both sides are going to try and switch to not vote for them. Heidi Heitkamp, Joe Donnelly, they're going to make them not vote, because they're going to try and make them switch apart from party lines. And when you have people like Heidi Heitkamp and Joe Manchin who are up for re-election right now in blood red states that went hard for Trump, it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to be able to vote for him like they all did with Gorsuch. I would say for people like you, Joy, who are probably freaking out that Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned and all these things, it is not Judge Jeanine Pirro, which I at one point in time thought was actually a possibility of becoming a Supreme Court justice. So you should be really. For you, it could have been much worse.
Well, he might be just acquired a version of Judge Jeanine.
No,
she's just out there.
He was very impressive. If you watched his speech last night, I was listening for certain things, but like everything from his mother's record in teaching and then putting herself through law school, his relationship with his girls. I might be just drinking Kool-Aid, I don't know, but I sat there, I was like, this guy seems so amazing.
So did Gorsuch.
Well, he also talked about the importance of diversity, how his the clerks he's hired have been women, many women. And I didn't know if I was just hearing what I wanted to hear, but I really was impressed. But as my husband, who's a lawyer, said, Supreme Court justices are some of the best people, the nominees even.
Well, this is what I try to say all the time. In the Supreme Court, you don't always get what you want the way you want it. And so I think if people are concerned about Roe v. Wade, you need to start talking locally to the people in your state. If you're concerned about it, because the bottom line is we know that if a woman wants an abortion, she will find a way to get one. That's just the way it is, and that's why all of this. Well, that's why all of this came about in the first place. Let's remember that. First of all.
But it's not just that. It's also gay rights. It's the ACA.
Well, y'all were talking about abortion rights, and so that's where I came from. But I believe that if he does what most Supreme Court judges should do, with the exception of Anton Scalia, in my opinion, and he votes what is correct for the country and not voting his particular religion or his particular beliefs, then I'm willing to listen and accept it. That's what
he
what I think is close to
too. He said, I will honor precedent.
Well, he did that when he was a D.C. Circuit judge, though. Being on the Supreme Court is definitely different because you are interpreting the law, right? So that's very different. But I do tend to agree with you, Whoopi, on that in terms of what the states will do. I agree with Jeff Toobin, my friend, who basically said, listen, we're going to see at least 20 or 22 states challenge abortion. And we're going to see, I think, those challenges. Maybe they'll outlaw abortion, maybe they'll limit abortion, and then we're going to see those challenges go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, no question, has swung to the right. It's much more conservative. But if you believe in the judicial system, as I do, if you believe in the law, as I do, and if you believe in the Constitution and precedent, I do think that you can't sort of yell fire at this point.
No, but we believe in balance of power, checks and balances, and we haven't got that in any of the three branches of government
because
right now, and it's going to be even worse when this guy comes in.
But this implication, I think, for people on the But people on the left, like last night, Shannon Bream, who's a host on Fox News, wasn't comfortable doing her broadcast outside with all the protesters. And there were people with signs with blank spaces saying, "We hate blank," just waiting to fill in whoever it is. And I think the left does themselves a disservice when you're not even looking at the person presented in front of you and you've already made the decision. That's not happening on this show, but I'm just saying there are people outside doing it. But
the left is taking a page from Mitch McConnell's book.
But what I want to say is that the idea, and you've said this before, they're like, this is like a stolen experience. This is what elections have consequences. And yes, Republicans have 3 branches of power. Now we're getting 2 more seats in the Supreme Court. But it's why voting is so important. But the idea that we're living in like some, I don't know, totalitarian fascist country where this was just appointed by a dictator, it's just a lie. And I think we have to be intellectually honest.
Well, he's under investigation. We're going to have Alan Dershowitz on today. And I'd like to ask him about that. Why would a president who's under investigation by the FBI for obstruction of justice and collusion be allowed to pick a Supreme Court justice who will be there? I'll be dead. There are many people in this room who will still be alive and need abortions and what have you, need health care. How dare he be allowed to do this when he is under investigation?
Said about the importance of voting, because right now you see that a shift of fewer than 80,000 votes in 3 states led to a generation of this justice and their oversight. So it's really important that people remember we still have less than 50% of the American public turns out for voting.
Voting is voting is everything. You know, you don't like what's happening,
but
you can stand outside and scream and yell all you want to, but it's not going to shift anything until you put your foot in the voting booth and take responsibility for what's happening. This is on us. Oh, we'll be back. We'll be right back.
Well, how dare he be allowed to do this when he's under investigation? Yeah. Let's just get to the gist of it. The guy is Dershowitz, a legal scholar, liberal Democrat, and author of the book, The Case Against Impeaching Trump, also attempted to explain to Behar that the dangers in her way of thinking during his segment on the show, but it was to no avail. The guy is under investigation by the FBI for collusion, for obstruction, for violating the emoluments clause. There's a list of things. And as you mentioned, Mitch McConnell stole the last Supreme Court justice, which I think should be illegal, but it probably isn't. Why should we give the president, who is under investigation, the chance to affect the lives of millions of people with this Supreme Court justice, Behar argued? Because if you don't, every president will be put under investigation to prevent them from making Supreme Court nominations, he said. But Behar does not get that. She is unhinged and she wants this president removed from office. Consequences to the Constitution and the Republic be damned. Behar, like the protesters at the Supreme Court with their pre-printed signs, did not care who President Trump nominated. She was going to fight against them. The president could have nominated a Democrat and she would be outraged. That is why no one takes her seriously. The likelihood is that Judge Kavanaugh will be confirmed with every Republican vote and potentially the votes of some red state Democrats, because there is no reason to oppose him no matter what Joy Behar says. Actually, Sunny Hostin was more, I was surprised. I guess she got some backlash. She said, let me tone it down a bit. But Behar is always unhinged, and we shouldn't expect otherwise. It'd be a miracle for her to be any different. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.